love Friday, Saturday, but then once Sunday came around, the Sunday scaries hit, and you just don't want to think about work. And then, you got a long week ahead of you. And so for me, like, that was what drove me to figure out, okay, how can I use money to get ahead and free up my time and bring different options to me.
Number one thing I love about investing is the fact that it gives me options to opt out of those things that I would otherwise have to do.
The snowball works great on compounding, like up, but also can work on the way down too if you don't take care of business. And so if you can think long-term, past 5 years, this is where the powerful stuff happens. Most people just don't want to wait that long.
You are both self-employed. You're both entrepreneurs. You both had 9-to-5 jobs before you made the leap. Same with me. Very few people regret betting on themselves and investing in themselves.
Amen.
Hey friends, Andy here from the YouTube channel, Your Friend Andy. And today on the podcast, I am very excited because one, I'm at FinCon. I'm live in New Orleans with some friends. But two, I have two guys who are in their 20s. And together, they are both, in terms of net worth over $500,000, $250,000 in net worth or more each. So I think it's incredibly impressive that these two guys in their 20s have built that. And so I want to have them on the podcast to kind of share some insights, how they got there or how they think about wealth, investing, etc., to all of you listeners. So Daniel and Kolin, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, Andy, thank you again for having me. We're here at FinCon again. It's all about personal finance, so this is the kind of stuff that I love talking about. So,
Andy, your friend Andy, my friend Andy, appreciate you having me on.
Everyone's friend Andy.
Everyone's friend Andy. New Orleans is great. Thanks for having me on for the 78th time.
You started coming on the podcast
As I always say every time I come on, if I lose my ranking in number of times on the show, I'm gonna just do consecutive episodes.
There is no fear of that you being dethroned anytime soon. And I should mention where we are. Where is this weird place we're in? Well, we are at FinCon, financial conference here in New Orleans and in person. And so why not chat finance at financial conference?
A lot of good money nerds here. A lot of interesting money conversations, and we don't have to feel so weird. Just like I always annoy my fiance talking about this stuff, so it's nice to just like chat with fellow money, personal finance people all the time.
If you are a money nerd and you feel all alone or something, like you don't have any friends, you can come to something like this because this is just, you can talk to somebody about interest rates for an hour straight, and they'll be happy to oblige.
It's group therapy.
And if you don't like finance, but you like credit cards, they have CardCon. Did you see that?
CardCon, yeah, that's a great one too.
You have to go.
I might be going there. We'll see. I've really been like getting into obviously the credit card stuff with my YouTube channel. So that's even more in depth in the personal finance stuff. Even more nerdy with the credit card stuff.
And then maybe they'll have CryptoCon.
There is lots of crypto conferences.
That's true.
Let's start with. I think it's really interesting when I meet somebody who is in their 20s. And started investing in their 20s, and they what was the motivation behind like getting started? Like when I was in my 20s, I didn't think at all about investing. So maybe we'll start with you, Daniel. Like what was that impetus? What was that little soft push to get you going in this direction?
Yeah, honestly, I throw all the credit back to YouTubers and like people on social media talking about this stuff that like we're all a part of that conversation now. But for me, when I was in college, I was a finance major. I graduated school in 2018, and kind of around that same time, I feel like that was when personal finance YouTube really started to become a thing, and I started, learning more like real life stories around the concepts that I was learning in my finance classes. So I got to hear just the Graham Steffens of the world talking about what they were doing in their life to get ahead financially. So by the time I was able to start my first full-time job, I knew about, the 401k stuff, the Roth IRA stuff, and just slowly just putting money aside for the future. And, when you kind of first get out of college, you might not be making that much money. I was probably making above average for some people. I think I was making $62,000 my first year. So I just was fortunate enough to live at home for a little bit. So there was just an advantage there where any extra savings I could have for that first year of living at home was just going right into either my 401k, taken out of my paycheck, like I said, the Roth IRA, and then maybe a little bit into a taxable brokerage account, and then just slowly starting there. And just continuing to educate myself and learn over time and really think long term, because I don't think enough people really do that.
Yeah, and if anybody listening to this is thinking, oh, 62K, that's a pretty good, start. You don't, and that is awesome, and that's really cool that you built that for yourself. But you don't need that to start. I mean, my first job out of college, I've tweeted about this quite a bit. My first full-time, 40 hours a week, full-time paycheck job, $23,000 a year, and still ended up a millionaire. So it can all work out. But I'm curious, Colin, what about you? What's your
Well,
motivator?
my first job was $50,000 a year. Plus, it was sales, so I had a little bit of bonuses. But I was living in Houston, Texas. I had an apartment. I was like all by myself. This is 2020, right when COVID started, and was able to make it work then too. So I think there's an income side of money, and there's what do you do with your income side of money? And a lot of people say, oh, I don't make enough money, but in reality they do. They just want to spend it, no instant gratification. Like you said, long-term world, they don't think like that. They think instant gratification. So you have to change that first. But secondly, so I was 17 when I started investing. When I was 17, I got on the internet. I was making money. I was mowing lawns. So I had a bunch of cash. And I was like, oh, how do I build wealth? How do I make money? So I got on the internet and learned about the stock market and investing. I learned about penny stocks. And I've talked about this before on your podcast, Andy, but Daniel, have you heard of Timothy Sykes?
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
I have,
yeah. So I was like, I'm going to be the next Timothy Sykes. So I put $400 in an account, which, when you're 17, $400 is a lot of money. And I was like, all right, I'm going to find these penny stocks and I'm going to buy 1 million shares of this penny stock. And it was like $100 worth. So it was like super penny stock, like 0.000 whatever. And I was like, if this thing goes to just $1, I'm gonna have $1 million. Like that's how I thought it. I was like, and it's less
A
than
plus rationale.
Is right. Obviously that didn't work out. Lost most of the $400, but I learned a great lesson. And then from there, it's just like my investing has evolved into the boring, ETF, like nothing crazy stuff for majority of my portfolio, and just let it compound over time. And if you start early enough, like we have, it will help in the latter half of years in life because of that compounding effect.
So 23K, 50K, 62K starting pay. So listen to Daniel first, Colin second, me last.
Well, that's what, I started by saying that. I think I said oh, it's not that much money, but that is a lot of money. Like it really is and it all depends geographically where you are as well. 62K is not going to take you very far in San Francisco as much as it would in the middle of Pennsylvania or something like that. So for me that was plenty to begin with, and like I said, living at home was a blessing as well, where I could just go ahead and instead of paying, I think my first rent was $1,100 or $1,200 in Philadelphia, and instead of having to pay that for the first year out of school, that just went straight into investments. So that was like a good head start and an advantage that not everybody is able to take advantage of. Like the fact that I could live with my parents and my job was close enough. I commuted an hour and 15 minutes for my first 6 months of that job, so I definitely wasted a little bit of money on gas and some time there, but the savings of rent for the first year was a great jump start to the whole thing.
And let's get into a whole bunch more of that in just a second after a word from this podcast sponsor, Relay. I have some very exciting news. Relay, the official banking platform of Profit First, has launched the Reasons to Be Profitable contest. They are awarding $100,000 in cash prizes to entrepreneurs, including a grand prize of $50,000. There's a powerful why behind your business. To compete for the cash prizes, you just need to share your why and your story. You could win the grand prize of $50,000 plus extras, the silver spotlight of $15,000 plus extras, the bronze bonanza of $10,000 plus extras, or be one of the 50 people to win $500 in a lucky draw. The top applications will be considered by a panel of 5 in a blind judging process, with all identifiable information removed from the application. So, let the story behind your business and your reasons to be profitable do the heavy lifting. The judges will weigh each submission based on the following: storytelling, impact, grit, innovation, and financial journey. The contest ends on November 12, 2023. To enter, check the link to the contest in the video description or in the podcast show notes, or go to relayfi.com/reasons-to-be-profitable. And we're back. So what I want to dig into now is, so you both kind of talked about where you kind of started, which is super interesting. But I think it's also kind of fascinating that someone in their 20s, how did you start thinking about the idea that what I put in now can grow at such a rapid rate versus if I were starting in my 30s or my 40s or my 50s? Like, what was the idea that got in your head that you kind of realized, oh, wow, this could grow like leaps and bounds if I start sooner than later?
I mean, I really think it was the whole the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. I think it, again, credit back to the finance YouTubers, where it was just these basic videos showing the math of starting investing when you're 22 versus 32 and how much just 10 years can affect that compound interest. And that's also not even taking into account the fact that like you have so much potential to start businesses over your life. So like you're going to increase your income, but if you can at least just commit to a steady every single month contribution to certain investment accounts, starting early, like that's just it's like you're hedging your risk that like financially you're not going to be as well off in the future. You're at least allowing compound interest to do its thing, and like a lot of people do realize that later on in life. So I was very fortunate that was just something that was it interested me, and it got me started earlier than most people.
Yeah, and I'm a big like numbers guy, so I have to see it on a screen. So what like the big aha moment for me was going on an investment calculator and just inputting, like playing around with it, right? And inputting like, 40 years investing $200 a month, assuming 8% return. What's that going to be? Doing now that for 30 years and seeing the difference of that extra 10 years. You're only doing $200 a month, but over the course of 30 years versus 40 years equates to whatever it is. I don't know the math off the top of my head, but a lot of money, like significant amount, right? And then it's like, okay, what if I'm able to invest $500 a month instead of $200 a month, 40 years versus 30 years, 30 years versus 20 years, 20 years versus 10, right? And seeing that like on a graph really was like the aha moment. And again, I was lucky enough to be interested in this stuff at a young age. So I was like, why not capture that? Like there's a very high probability that I live to the next 40 years, right? I'm 25, so 65.
I'll take
right?
that bet.
Yeah, right? Like in 75, even 8, I mean, life expectancy is what, 78? So let's just say 80. So I have 55 years for that money to compound. And it's like, if I can get there now, if I run the numbers on what I have now for 55 years, like obviously inflation, but it's going to look pretty good, right? Versus if I wait till I'm 45 or 50 and then I only have like 20 years for it to compound or 30 years, it's just not as good for the amount of money you're putting into it.
Yeah, it wasn't an investment calculator for me, but it was one of those graphs, those charts. I'm pretty sure it was in Ramit Sethi's book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which was like kind of the first like aha book I ever read. I read a few other money books, but never quite clicked. But that one had one of those, Debbie started investing at 20, and Ronald, he started in his 30s, and Debbie can stop at age 30, and she'll still overtake, and I was like, what? Mm-hmm. And of course, womp womp for me. I was reading this as I was like turning 30, but better late than never. But I understood for the first time. What were some of the first books or other resources you first started consuming when you got interested in this whole investing and wealth world?
Yeah, so aside from any of the social media stuff on YouTube, it was definitely the books. And for me, I love listening to audiobooks when I'm just driving, doing chores around the house.
Well, you got an hour and a half commute, so you got a lot of time in the car.
I consumed so many books for the first 6 months. It was like that was honestly like that might have been my aha moment, where I was already watching the videos, but to listen to these books, I'm like, I might as well put this time to good use. So I don't think I listened to a single song for those 6 months that I was just podcast and books, but especially a lot of audiobooks. So I feel like the typical ones are like, I Will Teach You to Be Rich was a big one. The Psychology of Money is another favorite of mine. I think everybody's kind of read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. What else have I read? It's really like anytime stuff would pop up on the business page for Audible, I would just download it. So I think my library is probably like 100 plus books now, and I'll go back and reread some. And sometimes it's business and money. Sometimes it's more of just like, okay, the mindset of trying to succeed in business. And yeah, I think that those money books specifically that I just mentioned, though, those were the ones that I listened to first, and they really helped me to see. And I think when we talk to people that are really into the personal finance stuff, they all clearly have read the same things, because we do share a lot of like similar thoughts.
Yeah, like all the books you mentioned, 100%, and then also Millionaire Next Door was one of those. That
was
books.
A big one for me.
Yeah, where it's like wow, it really makes you think that most people, the millionaire next door, like where you grew up, right, your next door neighbor or whatever.
Because when you think about the idea, especially at that young age, of like what a millionaire is, you have this picture, and you really do think Lamborghini, yep, Rolex watch, fancy clothes.
And that's what like is portrayed as being the rich, right? Which they're obviously very wealthy, but the average person, the average millionaire, isn't buying a Lamborghini and flying private. right? They're driving a Toyota, or maybe they have a BMW, but it's after they got, nice slump of money or whatever it is. Like, so the millionaire next door for me was like the one that was like, wow, is A, possible for me, but also B, like put it into perspective that yes, $1 million is a lot of money, but also it's like I can get there. Here's how I can get there. And then here's how I can even, maybe surpass that to multiple millions.
So I'm really interested in how a 20-something-year-old can get past the idea of, my 40s, my 50s, my 60s. That's forever from now. I've got plenty of time. I can keep partying. I can have the fancier car. I can spend all my money now. I don't need to invest. Like how did you get outside of that? And how did you get to where you were actually thinking long term? Like this investment stuff might make a difference one day.
Yeah, it's going to vary for everybody, but for me at least, I've always felt very fortunate in the fact that my issues are really not that big compared to a lot of other people out there. There's a lot of issues that people might have, whether it's related to money, where they're living, what country they're in, just with their mental state, number of issues. Everybody's going to be different. But I've been very happy and fortunate for my adult life that I think because I was feeling good now, I'm like, I want to make sure I'm setting money aside and thinking about myself in the future because so many unknown things can happen over the course of time here. So I don't know what my health is going to be like in the future. I don't know what my family situation is going to be like in the future. Am I going to have kids? How many kids? Like all these unknowns. So I want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself because I feel very, very fine with where I am today at the present. So that's going to vary for a lot of people. But I guess if there was any advice to come from that, it's to try as much to like get yourself in a good state of mind today, because if you can do that, maybe then it makes it a little bit easier to think about yourself in the future, and you won't feel like you need to fill these holes in your life by spending money on unnecessary material things or getting into credit card debt just because you need a shopping trip to feel better or something like that. So if you can get yourself to a place where you're just happy with yourself, you're content. I think it does make it easier to start thinking about how you can start treating your future self a little bit more fairly with the money you're going to set yourself up with.
Yeah, because it's not just a matter of we all have the idea that we should save money, but investing is not just saving money; it's growing money. And so every dollar you put in today, one day when you have the kids, or when you're 70 years old and you need your hip replaced, or I don't know, or something happens later in life,
a scooter.
Yeah, or you just want to stop working, or you need a scooter, you need a rascal. That money that you put in today, that dollar today, is worth many more dollars later because you made that decision today. So I'm curious how you think about this whole thing, Kolin.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very, very high probability that Kolin lives till I'm 65, 75, 85. And real quick, caveat.
I've got a standing $10,000 bet that you do it.
Okay, so I was born in 1998. So I have one of the greatest opportunities in our lifetime,
to claim the same birth year as Windows 98.
That A, but B, if I can make it to 101, I can live in the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2100s. Only people born in 1999 have a better probability just by age. So I'm gonna live to 2100.
And one more aside to that. I believe, now I might be butchering this, but I'm pretty sure it's like 2138. So you might not make it that long, but 2138, I believe, is right now where the last Bitcoin ever is predicted to be mined that year. So you will live into the same century that we'll see our last ever Bitcoin mined. Which I'm personally very excited about.
To live that long?
Well, I'm going to be a mostly cybernetic creature by then.
Okay.
But I plan to live to at least 900.
Oh, okay. So if you're going to live to 900, you might as well invest. Like,
if you think investing in compound interest is one hell of a drug into your 60s, wait until you get into your 900s.
Except then people won't start investing until their 100s.
That's true. That's true.
I've got so many centuries left. I'm plenty of time.
Exactly.
Okay, so off a little tangent there. So I'm going to live
a little worthwhile tangent.
Yeah, it was very worthwhile. But I'm going to live to an older age, 80, hopefully, or longer. And so I don't want to have to work till I'm 80. Now, do I want to work? Maybe, I don't know. But I don't want to financially be strapped to a job because I have to work. And so for me, it was like, what's my alternative? I just spend everything I make, right now, and I spend everything I make next week when I get a paycheck, and then the next week, the next paycheck, and just spend it all, and then hope one day either my 401k is something if that person's doing that, or B, Social Security can support me, which odds are, it's not looking too good for Social Security. So it's like the alternative is just spend everything, or do I set aside a little bit of money today for a greater future? Because like you said, Daniel, I don't know what my life looks like in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years. Kids, health issues, family issues in terms of like, can I help people out? Like if I have to, all these things, like money gives you that option and that flexibility to have those things when they come up to be able to like solve those problems. But if you don't have the money thing figured out, your life is stressful because you have to go to work, because you have to pay the bills. Because if you don't pay the bills, your mortgage doesn't get paid. Then you lose your house. Then you lose your car. All these things, like the snowball works great on compounding, like up, but also can work on the way down too if you don't take care of business. And so, if you can think long term, past 5 years, then you should. When you invest, it's like this is where the powerful stuff happens. Most people just don't want to wait that long.
I think that is one of the number one motivators for me. Is I absolutely despise. I hate the idea that I have to do something. I have to work for this paycheck. I have to make this decision or whatever because of money reasons. And investing, it gives me options. That's number one thing I love about investing is the fact that it gives me options to opt out of those things that I would otherwise have to do. Now, what about anything practical on a day-to-day basis? It's so easy. We get the paycheck. We go, I want to buy this or that or spend it on whatever. And obviously, we're maybe better at this than most people because we're the stuff we live and breathe, personal finance and money and investing, whatever. But, rewind the clock when we weren't as good, or to people who are listening who aren't quite here yet, how do you, decide I'm not going to go to the bar this week, or I'm not going to buy that car that's a really big stretch, or I'm not going to do this thing? How do you practically make those decisions to your benefit?
I think you have to dig deep down and understand why you're making those decisions in the first place. Do you actually want that car? Do you actually want to go out? And what are the decisions doing for you? Again, it all kind of goes back to like your happiness in life. Are they bringing you happiness, or are they just filling a hole in the short term? So it's really difficult to say what exactly that can do. For me, anytime I'm thinking about what I want to do to set myself up for the future, it all really starts with limiting my expenses. And before I had any extra income, that was the first place I looked. So I really thought long and hard about what was bringing value and happiness to my life, and anything that was just excess or unnecessary, that was what I first started cutting out of my budget, and just slowly but surely got rid of the Amazon purchases, stopped going out quite as much, just really wasn't finding the same joy in those things, because I was able to kind of dig deep down and realize what all these different expenses in my life really represented for me. So that was the first place that I started. And then from there, once you limit your expenses, you can kind of expand to other things, try to grow your income and figure out where you want to take your career and all that good stuff. So I guess that's kind of what I would say for some of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest thing to do is you don't want to, when you're building wealth and being smart with your money is a lifestyle change for a lot of people, right? It's I'm used to going and spending everything I make. Now I have to sacrifice $100 a month or $200 a month or a paycheck, right? So I think the easiest thing to do to basically force you to make that sacrifice is when you get that paycheck, automatically have $100, sent to an investment account or a savings account, or whatever your goals are with your money. Have it automated just immediately. It's, common phrase you'll see with finance people is pay yourself first, right? Just immediately just pay yourself first. And then especially if you're just starting out, don't make it if your paycheck is $2,000 every 2 weeks or whatever it is, don't make it's $500 automatic, because you're gonna be whoa, shoot, I only have $1,500 now. So, make $100 and just get in the game, hit the single, just understand it and start with $100, have it automatically pulled out of your account and put somewhere else. Second practical advice, and you're not gonna like this comment, but I don't like this guy either. The other guy, I agree with Dave Ramsey in this case, is and you said this earlier on the podcast for you that is chop up the credit card. At least first. Is if your credit limit is $2,000 or $5,000, doesn't mean you get to spend $5,000 for the month. It's that's what they're giving you because they want you to use it, because they want you to pay them the 22% interest, whatever. So it's if you can't control your spending, if that's a thing, chop up your credit card, pay yourself first. So at least at a minimum, if your paycheck's $2,000, you have 1,800 left, $200 is sent to your whatever account, different account invested, and then now you have 1,800 to spend. You don't have more because the credit card gives you more. That would be my practical advice.
Yeah, I think those are both examples of like actions you can take today that really do they pay you back in the future. So you're taking action today. Okay, it's like a one-time thing. You set up recurring investments, whether that's to an investment account, to a savings account, whatever it might be. That's a one-time action today that pays you into the future. Or cutting up the credit cards. If you have no control over that stuff, you don't understand how that works with using credit cards responsibly. Cutting them up today and getting rid of those accounts, that's going to prevent you from making those mistakes going forward. So you're taking those actions today that have benefits that compound into the future. So you want to make some of those mistakes that are very easy to make. You want to set good roadblocks in place to prevent yourself from making the same mistakes, and you want to set yourself up for all the good stuff, like those automatic contributions.
I think automating it is such a big one, because if you spend that money on investing before you have a chance to spend it yourself, it's like such a life hack. Like the moment I learned about that, again, Ramit Sethi, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I learned all about like automating your finances, making financial systems, like having a flow of money and just like set it and forget it. Super powerful. Absolutely agree. And yeah, credit cards, if you can't control it, you should cut those up, get rid of those, get it out of your life, because that's how I got in the place I was. I went to college. Wells Fargo had their like pizza parties and stuff, and I went to the pizza party and they said sign up for the credit card, and I go, great, what is this? And then I get a $10,000 limit. I'm like, $10,000? This is free money. And I used it, and I racked up almost 6 figures of debt. So a question I have here, because it seems like I had that pain in my life that made me make a change with my finances. Kolin had the $400 into penny stocks and learned a hard lesson that way. Maybe you didn't have that exact pain, so that we've got a contrast here. And I'm curious, what do you think? Do most people need to struggle to make a bad investment, to have something like that happen before they decide to take the change? They have the pain, or do you think most people can just see the idea and intellectually understand it and then make a change?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to have a different catalyst that causes them to make those changes. So for me, the big struggle that I had in my life, and I shouldn't complain here because I've only been out of college working in the real world since 2018, so it's been 5 years now. So my real challenge was trying to figure out where I wanted to take my career. And we talked about before having options and flexibility and freedom to do what you want to do. And I didn't feel like I had that. I would dread Mondays. I'd love Friday, Saturday, but then once Sunday came around, the Sunday scaries hit, and you just don't want to think about work. And then, you got a long week ahead of you, doing stuff that you're not passionate about. And so for me, that was what drove me to figure out, okay, how can I use money and just to get ahead and free up my time and bring different options to me. So for me, it wasn't necessarily like a mistake that made me feel like I needed to make different changes, but it was more so like, okay, how can I get rid of this job that I don't want? How can I create a life that I want to live? So it started by cutting my expenses, saving up 9 months worth of an emergency fund, and then really income was my solution. So I needed to figure out a side hustle that I could get started with that could generate some extra money for me, and it took a while to kind of get going. And YouTube, I tried a bunch of different things ever since I graduated college, and YouTube eventually was what I landed on as like a 4th or 5th different thing. I never thought I would be on camera for a living, but slowly and surely it started growing, and I was able to use the income from the YouTube channel to create the life that I wanted to. And I'm still trying to build that every single day and take it to the next level. So there's just, that was big. The big change for me was realizing that I was unhappy at my job. I needed to have some sort of thing that would allow me to escape from that. So income was the solution there for me, because I needed to replace my $60,000-$70,000 a year job.
It's super cliche to everyone says it, if you want to get ahead with investing and stuff, make more money, increase your income, but it's so absolutely true. And you just talked about the Sunday scaries. I felt that. Andy had a case of the Mondays, all the above. And I wanted to escape from all that. And that kind of was another thing that pushed me on this journey. And you were both self-employed. You're both entrepreneurs. You both had 9-to-5 jobs before you made the leap. Same with me. So if we could actually take a little pivot here in the conversation, and we can start with you, Kolin, on your thoughts here. As a 20-year-old, is that the most ideal time possible? And would you encourage other people, if they have a little glimmer of like, I want to go do my own thing or start something on the side or whatever, is this the time to do it?
I don't think there's like an age necessarily. I think it's like situational in the sense that, if you could be 32 and you're single, or you have a spouse and no kids, so your time is not as like taking it up. I don't have kids. I don't notice. Like I just heard from people having kids is a lot of time spent, right? Efforts. So
as a 20-year-old, most 20-year-olds don't have all those time encumbrances.
Right. So if we're looking at like 20 to 25 range, like in assuming you're not married or have maybe you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whatever it is, and no kids, and you have time. The answer is yes. Now, do I think you should just like give up your job day one and like go, oh, Andy said make a YouTube channel, or Daniel said make a, and I don't think you should.
I didn't say that. Daniel definitely said that.
Definitely should make a YouTube channel, but do not quit right away.
Exactly. I think we're on the same page. It's like do something on the side. So when you get home from your 9 to 5 that you dread, it's Monday, and you're like, oh shoot, I had to go back to my my Monday job. I hate.
Cursing is okay on the podcast.
Okay. Shit, I had to go to my. When you get home, don't just go sit on the couch and watch whatever shows on Mondays. I don't know. Like build something, YouTube channel, whatever it is you want to do. Like you said, Daniel, like try things, try it, and don't just try it once and be done. Like try it, actually try it, keep going, and then like hopefully one of those things that you try sticks. Maybe it makes a little bit of money in the first month or the first couple months. It makes money. Then like devote more time, and then once it gets to the point where that side business. I guess I'll just say how I did it. Once I got to the point where my side business equated or was more than my 9 to 5 job for 6 months. So I waited quite a time.
Greater than or equal to?
Greater than, what did I say?
No, I was just throwing a little math class stuff
greater
in
than
there.
or equal to. Which like
what you said
the
was
line
totally
with
right.
the other line under it. Yeah. Whenever it was greater than or equal to my 9 to 5 income for 6 months, then I felt comfortable to take the leap. But I didn't quit my 9 to 5 in day one being like, oh, well, now it's Tuesday. No job, what do I do? It's like I built on the side for 6 months, well, longer than 6 months, but when the income was greater than or equal to for 6 months, then I took the leap.
Did you also do what Daniel did and build up savings to help float?
Not savings per se. It was all invested, but it was like a taxable. So if I had it,
Worst case you could.
Yeah, worst case I could have taken it, but
For those listening,
I held like no cash.
Kolin,
I'm so like you look at my checking account, it's like I have no money.
Kolin sees every dollar in his account, in his checking account, as a sin against his humanity.
Yeah.
And so he has to like spend it on investments as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And he's worth over $300,000 at 25.
I start getting
So
the itch. Yeah, I'm addicted to stocks.
What about you, Daniel? What do you think?
In terms of leaving a job or anything like
cash?
that. Do I have cash?
Yeah, how much cash do you have?
How much cash?
Right.
Check my wallet. Just hit the ATM earlier.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think everybody is going to want to pursue different things. Some people, so for example, like me and my fiance, we share a lot of similarities in our outlook on life and in our morals and things like that. But she very much loves having her job, her 9 to 5 job, because she really enjoys what she does. Me, I'm not against 9 to 5 jobs, but I knew that I needed to like be my own boss. Like that's just what gets me up in the morning and what drives me, because I want to create something. And so for me, that was the same thing. It was trying to find something. Just I want to always be somebody that produces rather than consumes. So that was just my mindset going into the YouTube thing. I get enjoyment out of scripting a video, filming a video, figuring out how to grow the YouTube channel, interacting with my audience, and things like that. So I'm trying to produce more stuff and consume less. I still will consume. We'll watch Netflix. When my fiance comes home from work, we'll watch a Netflix show. Watch an episode and go to bed. But then other than that, like I'm just trying to create things. So, but for a lot of other people, like I said, she loves her job, so she's fine with the 9 to 5 structure, and she's just developed a plan where she's going to grow in her career. So for her to grow her income, she's more about taking initiative at work and figuring out where she can go and what her 5-10 year plan looks like. She's starting to think about side hustles because she does want to get past a certain income level to just feel like she's just, really like creating something herself too. So she doesn't want to do YouTube, but she's thinking about, okay, could I be a fitness instructor? What are my other passions? What can I do? And it doesn't have to be something that replaces a full-time job, but then it does create that extra income. So everybody is going to be different, but I think everybody should at least give it a shot at trying to find a side hustle that they're passionate about. And I think a lot of people would be surprised about what type of opportunity is out there through content creation. Like, that's just, the creator economy is this new buzzword that's developed over the past few years. And anybody can turn a passion into, just go watch a lot of Gary Vee videos, and that's all he talks about is just, would you rather be making, $90,000 a year and unhappy, or $70,000 a year and just talking about things you love? Like, those are options in today's world. So there's a lot of money out there for that kind of stuff.
You can't like do a power hour of watching Gary Vee content and not walk out of it going like, I think I need to do all those things.
I need to buy the jet. I think that's a good point you said, though, and it's interesting. I personally do not think that everyone can be a business owner and or YouTube creator and or content creator, and leave their 9 to 5, right? Because as we all know, it is, some months are good, some months are bad. It's not like a consistent paycheck.
You
right?
have to love the ride.
You have to love the ride, exactly. I don't think that's for everyone, and that's fine. And like you said with your fiance, she loves her 9 to 5, right? And that's great but she does it because she loves it. And I mean, I don't know, I can't speak, and it sounds like it. Like Monday morning, she probably doesn't get like, oh, I got to go to work. It's more like, hey, I could go to work, like, and she enjoys her thing. So if you enjoy your 9 to 5, like, stick with it as long as you can, and maybe just do a side hustle, like you said with your fiance, and do that on the side to make some more money, like, because making that leap is more than just like, oh, I'm going from a 9 to 5 to a business owner. It's like there's all the like psychological side that comes with it, of like the roller coaster of some months are good, some months are bad, and depending on which route you go, like if you're doing content creation, a lot of your money is derived from like sponsorships and deals, and it's like then you gotta, that's a business in and of itself, is like managing those things. So sometimes it's not as always good as people make it out to be, as like a business owner, content creator. So the 9 to 5 thing is not a bad thing if you enjoy it.
And speaking of the almighty Gary Vee, and what you were talking about earlier about, all this extra time on the side, and, you still watch Netflix or whatever, it's easy to watch the Gary Vees of the world, or to be on Twitter, and everyone's like, losers watch Netflix all the time, they do this all the time, they watch sport, all this stuff. You got to be out there working and grinding, whatever. But I think, and maybe y'all don't just agree with me, but I would assume you do, that a lot of the reasons we're doing these things is so we can have the time and the freedom to do whatever we want, if that is Netflix, or if it's traveling, or if it's whatever. So maybe you can both speak a little bit to how you do balance, because obviously we like working, we like doing the things we're doing, otherwise we wouldn't be doing them, and we could spend all day long on them. So how do you not do that all the time, and how do you actually find time for yourself and work that balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just look at like the traditional sense of like what retirement is, where you work till you're 65, you set some money aside, you retire, and then you do nothing. Like, some people, that's their idea of retirement. I think what a lot of people in today's world say is, okay, I want to try to move that up a little bit and maybe like have more freedom and options today. So that's why they try to generate the income. And but yeah, as far as like myself and balancing the work and the personal life and stuff, it's definitely tough. I think at least in my job right now for what I do is like I'm always thinking about things for my business. So it is tough to like separate that. If I watch YouTube, which I've been obsessed with YouTube since 2008, and so now I actually view like watching YouTube and random channels that pop up on my homepage, like I view that as a part of the job, because I get inspiration for like why did I click on that video? What was it about that title and thumbnail that I liked? And then I kind of like tuck that away, and like, how can I apply that to my channel a little bit?
Half of what I watch is because I'm interested in the topic, but also half of it's like, what did they do so right that made this work so well?
Exactly, and that's what's so cool about that. And but so what was once just like downtime for me of watching YouTube, I'd come home after class in college and watch my favorite YouTube channels. Now it's actually like I feel like a part of the job. But yeah, so it's tough to balance what is work and what is your personal life. But you have to just find what, like, it all goes back to happiness. Like, how do you feel after you watch Netflix or a good movie or something like that, I usually feel pretty good. Like I watched a good. But if I scroll through like TikTok, it feels like I just ate junk food. It feels like sometimes maybe TikTok's fine. Like it all depends. But a lot of times you should look at whatever you're consuming and feel good about it. Like if you feel like you learned something or you feel like you were entertained and that it was worthwhile, then that's fine. Because you need to have that free time to get away from the work stuff.
My Twitter is on the same phone as my personal phone. So my work-life balance is like Andy could tweet at me at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday or midnight when you're still up, and I'll get it.
And because we follow each other, it actually pops up as a notification on.
So I mean, my work-life balance is like, I don't think it all flows in one. I don't know if there's like 5 p.m. I log off 6. There's none of that. It's like when I get up at 6 a.m., 6:30. It's like, oh, I could technically work, and I look at Twitter and look at what's going on in the news and stocks, and so there's really no like separation. However, to me, I enjoy it so much, and this is so cliche, and like when I used to hear people say this, I'm like BS, but like I don't really feel like I'm ever working. Like I know there's work, it's like there's things involved. It's like it is work, but I don't feel like, oh man, I have to go. I have to go do this. It's like I get to go do this because it is fun. Like I enjoy these things I talk about because I actually live what I talk about. So it's fun for me. So work-life balance probably not the greatest, but it is something that I don't really feel like it's work as much as I would like I did when I was working a 9 to 5. And if they would have told me, hey, it's 7 p.m. on a Monday, can you come work? No, I'm not doing that. But now it's like if I had to do something for my stuff now, it's like, of course I'm going to go do it because I don't ever feel like it's actually work.
Yeah, that's the exact same thing that the whole that statement there where like you have to do this versus you get to do this. Like if this was like we're here in New Orleans right now for FinCon, and if this was a conference that I was going to for my job that I quit, like usually I would travel down to DC or something like that in my first job out of school, and that was fine. Like I would go away for a few days, work trip, and meet with clients and stuff. But that was very much like I have to do this. I have to go away from Tuesday until Thursday, and then I'll be back. But this is like I'm so excited. I get to go to New Orleans. I get to talk to people, and we're all passionate about the same stuff. So it's like when you do like pursue your passions, I think that opens up the opportunities to this kind of stuff. And like we said before, like not everybody's going to do this. Not everybody's going to do this full time. But there's also plenty of people here that are not full time, but they're still making a little bit of a side hustle income off of this stuff. So there's so many ways to look at this stuff. But yeah, I definitely that resonates with me a lot. Is that I have to do this versus I get to do this type of thing.
And when you read those tweets or the motivational poster or whatever, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life, it registers as 110% bullshit. It's absolutely like there's so cliche, whatever. But like Kolin just said, now that we're on the other side of it, it is really true. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you are actually excited about if you can figure out a way to take the thing you're excited about and make it the thing that also sustains you, and you don't lose your love for it in the process, and then we have a conference and we're like, I don't need to ask anyone's permission to go to this. I can just pick up, grab a ticket, and fly there and check it out, and hang out with some friends. It's a totally different like paradigm shift in your life, and I get a little bit of flack on places like Twitter because I do talk about getting out of your 9 to 5 and this and that. I don't actually hate the 9 to 5. I just hate being in situations where I can't do this and I can't control, and I'm not chasing the thing I'm excited about.
Yeah, I think like the people that say like how do I was thinking this as you were talking how to say it, but like there's a interesting dynamic from people that work 9 to 5s that they hate their 9 to 5 or they very strongly dislike, which I feel like is a pretty good handful of people, right? Or they're not happy at it. So in their mind, they want to save and invest so they can quit working. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I just want to go sit on the beach all day. And I mean, I don't know about them, but for me, I could never just go sit on a beach all day for 20 years straight. You get bored, right? Most people would.
A few days, it's pretty nice.
Right. But after a week, you're like, all right, what's going on? So
come on, ocean, do something.
Yeah, right, you're just rolling, you're just doing waves. But like the people that like us that are working on a business, something that we're passionate about, like I don't ever see myself quitting. Now, do I see myself like pulling back the reins and like not working as much? Yeah, but like I don't ever want to like quit and be done. And I say that because I find it interesting with people that are older that are like in their 50s that I know that own businesses that they're really passionate about, and they have enough money to retire, 10 years ago. Like they're doing fine financially, but why do they keep working? And of course, there's some that like for other reasons, but like I think most of them, it's because they really just truly love what they do. And like for them to retire, like they don't want to just go sit on the beach. So why not just keep doing what they love? Because there's no, the money's not a problem at this point. There's no like fight about or issue about money. It's just like, oh, I really love this business I built. Let me just keep doing it because I love it,
Yeah, I think too many people accept the fact that they work their 9 to 5, they dislike it. Oh well, it is what it is. I think too many people accept that fact. But there's so many other things you can do out there, and it doesn't have to be entrepreneurship. It could be finding a new career. I think some people are afraid to pivot. And even just relating that back to YouTube, I think a lot of times people, need to pivot their YouTube channel. I've seen plenty of successful creators do it, and sometimes people are afraid to do that. But some people realize that like maybe you need to do that. Or with business, some people need to pivot from one product to another if something's not working. And I think a lot of people are too afraid to pivot their career or to pivot to something that they do on their own, because they're just like, oh, well, I'll just keep it up and eventually I'll reach that age 65, retire. But I don't know. I guess that just wasn't acceptable to me. And I think a lot of people are waking up to that idea. And to your, talking about it on Twitter, some people will disagree with, you hating on the 9 to 5 job. But I think more than anything, what it does is it kind of wakes people up that like they need to hear that. Sometimes they can just fall in place into the system and they might need to hear that constantly reinforced, and they follow you and then they see these tweets over and over and okay, there are other options out there and there should be a way to escape. And so it really is beneficial to those types of people that need to just hear it because they're surrounded by other people that do just prefer the 9 to 5 stuff, but maybe they have that potential to do something else. So they go on Twitter, they can follow you and hear that message.
Yeah, I mean, in your 9 to 5 job, you might, I've called 9 to 5 jobs comfort money in the past, and there's some really great ones, but a lot of people do fall into that trap, and they work the job and it's comfortable and they don't want to change, and then they buy the fancy car and they have some kids and they buy the new house, and all of a sudden they have these golden handcuffs on that they can't take off because they have that job, that steady income, they have all their time filled with family and life and work, and they can't get out of it if they wanted to. So there is that element, but I think this whole comfort, like getting human beings, the animal creatures we are, like we're so adverse to change. And I think it's the same for like if you are in the opposite position where you're, we're talking about earlier about what's the motivation to get out of a bad situation or fix your finances. I think even living paycheck to paycheck, as much as you might think it's great to change, you're still just kind of in that zone, and it's hard to break out of it because big radical changes are just tough for us as people. Which is why I think I needed a harsh wake-up call of like, I'm in a lot of debt and I got to fix this. And you had your job and you had your your little stock whoopsie. We have these little moments. So like we're doing this entrepreneur thing. Obviously, we have all of these reasons we just talked about why we're doing this and why we've been investing. But what is like? Is there a deeper level beyond just it's nice to have the option? Like, what is the good feeling you get inside when you know that, hey, I'm in charge of my own destiny, not just with my job, but also with my finances?
They kind of go hand in hand. They should go hand in hand. That you want to feel good with your finances. You want to feel good with what you do. If you're gonna have 24 hours a day, you're gonna sleep for 8 of those. Okay, the other 16 hours, what are you doing? 8 hours of work typically. Well, you want to make sure you're enjoying half that day that you're awake. You shouldn't be doing something you don't like. But then you don't want to also just do something you absolutely love and make no money off of it. You have to be realistic with that too. So it's a really tough question to answer, I guess. For me, I guess for me, I started with trying to fix the money issue first, and then figuring out the happiness thing with my job, my career, as the money slowly like trickled in. And eventually, when I did leave my job, I was not ready to financially to like, I had the cash savings, but my channel I think was making probably about like a third, maybe like 20% of what my gross salary was. But I could see that there was like potential there, and it was going to continue to grow, and I was going to work really hard at it. So for me, that was enough to like. And funny enough, when I left my job, I was more comfortable than I've ever been, even though the money and the income for the first 3 months was not there. Month 4, I believe that was when it actually did surpass what my job was. So it only took 4 months of that, but I was actually very happy in those 4 months, even though my like career was kind of in question at that point and my finances were in question. I was so much happier because I had like a clearer headspace. And then the money followed from there. So there's a number of ways that it can happen. But you just want to, life's too short, I guess. That's just what it comes down to.
Very few people regret betting on themselves and investing in themselves.
Amen. Yeah, that's so true. Like I have no regrets with betting on myself, and I wish that more people would. I think people don't realize the potential that they do have to create something, to create the life that they want to live. So I encourage more people out there to pursue their passions. Some people say you shouldn't try to monetize your passions. You should try to keep that separate and as hobbies. But I don't know. I disagree with that because I've found a lot of happiness in pursuing my passions. Whether that just my career right now is the intersection of credit cards, personal finance, and YouTube, which are like 3 of my biggest passions. And I couldn't be happier. So that's I guess that's all I can say about that. But I encourage more people to go and take action.
Maybe the people who say that, because I know it's a controversial topic of like, don't chase your passion, don't follow your passion. And I can go either way on it, depending on what day it is. But, maybe they truly just haven't found the right combination, or they haven't found the right one or the right passion. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, Kolin, but also on this bigger topic.
I think bigger topic, I'm kind of like a control freak. Like I hate not being the one driving the car. I hate not being the one like, in control of like, I don't know. I feel like it just makes me jittery if I'm not. So I think with that being said, like not being able to control my time, between 8 and 5 or 9 to 5, whatever. It's like, oh, well, you got a meeting here and then you got, you can only have 20 minutes for lunch and then you're back. And then, you have to be here by this. And I remember I was working my first job. I was selling wine. So I didn't have like an office. I would go meet grocery stores and like sell them wine. And I remember my routes, I'll just make this makes most sense. I had a route and I only had 5 stores, right? And it was like each store had different delivery days. And other days there wasn't deliveries. I had to just go check in on it, whatever. And I remember it was one day and there was only 2 stores I had to go to. And these aren't like, it only took an hour or 2 each store, just like check in, see whatever. So my day, technically was 8 to 5, but it only took me 4 hours to get my stuff done. And I'm someone, if I have something, I'm just going to get it done. And it was like early afternoon that day, and I got a call from my boss, and she was like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm like already back in my place. I got done with everything I need to get done today." And she's like, "No, that's not how we work. Like you have more to do." And I was like, I have nothing more to do." Right?
Hard pass, friend.
Yeah. And so that was like kind of the beginning of like not necessarily the beginning, but that's just a culmination and addition of, okay, I can't even control my time when you like as a company, right? And she was a great like boss, but it was just like how it was set up was like you guys are controlling my time. And I get it for a certain period of my life for, a few years, I had to live the 9 to 5 and because I needed money and I didn't understand what I was doing. But then I got to the point where I had the income. I want to control my time. If I want to do a meeting at 11 a.m. with something, I want it to be the one I want to do. And then that was kind of the control side of me that was like, I want to control my time and control my destiny. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of why I took a bet on myself. I don't remember the second question, but that's the good first answer.
I love it. So let's go ahead and close this thing out. And what I think I want from the two of you, knowing all the things we just talked about, knowing kind of who we've been talking to, and maybe it is, the 18 or 20-year-old, the person in their 20s, but maybe it is the person in their 30s or 40s. But the person listening to this, hearing all these things, and much of it resonating. What is the challenge you would issue to the person listening to this right now? The thing that you would say, go out there, do this, or I challenge you to go try this thing, whatever that would be, something you want to leave people with, an action challenge.
For me, the one word would be patience. I knew from like the first time I started working after college that like I wanted to do something on my own, but I had to be patient because I didn't know what that was going to be. First of all, I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't have any money at the time, so I had to be patient. So I actually just started throwing darts at the board, seeing what would stick with just random stuff I would do on the internet. I tried the drop shipping stuff. I tried other I had a whole list on my phone of ideas. what I eventually learned is you actually don't need to think so big. You don't have to invent the next Facebook or anything like that. There's so many ways to create a living for yourself. So eventually I thought very realistically about what I could do and where my passions were. And slowly but surely, after, I guess it was 4 years after college, 3 years after college, that was when I first started the YouTube channel. But it took me being patient and realizing, okay, today sucked. This week sucks. A little unhappy at my job, but I got to be patient. I got to stick to, you just keep taking action and doing what's right. And eventually it's going to work out. So that's what I would tell if I was to tell my 23-year-old self right out of school. I would say just be patient with it and continue to pursue your passions, continue to produce instead of consume, like we talked about before, and good things are going to come. It really just, time is kind of just like the X factor. It's like the missing variable, that with enough time, good things come as long as you're taking the right actions. That's
so good. It's like, so often, especially younger Andy, I pictured things and I wanted them now, and it's so hard to get past that. So I think that's awesome if you can internalize that. What about you, Kolin?
I mean, patience by far is like probably one of the most important.
He already used
things.
That one, so you can't.
I'm building off of it. Okay, so I think the best thing you can do is if you take I'm looking at the camera on this one. If you take a look at yourself in the mirror tonight,
breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, that's right. I challenge you to take a look in the mirror tonight at yourself and ask yourself, like, in 10 years, in 5 years, do you want to live the life you're living today? Right? Where I don't know where you are, but most people probably are unhappy with their life in multiple different reasons. But like, where you are today, do you want to be there in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? The answer is probably no. Right? And let's assume it's no. Then what are you going to do to make that change? And it's not like you have to build the Great Wall of China today, but how can you lay the one brick? Brick by brick. That's my saying. So
if there's ever a motto for Kolin, it's brick by brick.
But in all seriousness, like your life changes one brick at a time. Imagine a house on foundation. It's one brick at a time. You don't lay the whole foundation at once. It's one brick at a time. So you probably aren't where you want to be today. Or if you aren't, then what are you going to do to make that change? And it just starts at one brick at a time. One video, one post, one tweet, one whatever business idea you have, one like email out to someone, right? Like one network of hey, LinkedIn, hey, I'm trying to enter this industry. I'd love to pick your brain. Whatever it is, like just start with one thing and then don't give up after one. Keep going, keep trying, and keep innovating to try to make something happen. Like Daniel said, he tried 4 businesses, 5 businesses before it got it, right? Like it's usually not the first one, but just keep going, because if you give up, you lose. If you don't give up, at least give yourself a chance.
Yeah, or $1. I mean, I'm a millionaire now, and I make videos on my channel, and I talk about this crypto thing, and people will say, "Oh, it's easy for you to say you've got money," and I have, I very politely in the comments remind people that once upon a time, I could barely scrape together $100 a month to invest. Once upon a time, I had all this debt and all these things, and that was a decade ago, and now here I am today. So between patience and just like doing it brick by brick, I'm able to get to where I am.
It's a good saying.
Today. It is a good one. Yeah. Well, I think that was a great place to leave everybody who's listening to this. If you were listening to this, thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you both for coming on the podcast.
Thank you again for having me.
Of course.
Goodbye, everybody.